I can just get the key to 1408, I can get out of your hair. My usual's overnight.
No one's ever lasted more than an hour. My only condition, stay in that room. To stitch himself back together using an old sewing needle before.
Mike Enslin was becoming renowned as a famous ghostwriter. His reputation grew because of his obsession with investigating haunted places, particularly hotels known for their ghostly activity. Fear was a word that didn't exist in Mike's dictionary. He believed only in what he could see with his own eyes. Mike would spend nights in notorious haunted spots, writing about his experiences in the books he published. His first work, 10 Haunted Mansions, was a success, followed by Haunted Graveyards and 10 Haunted Lighthouses, both of which were highly popular. As his fame spread, many hotel owners began calling Mike to investigate their establishments. They claimed their hotels were haunted by spirits, hoping that Mike's endorsement would attract guests. But so far, every claim had been debunked as a publicity stunt. Nothing supernatural had ever been found. One day, taking a break from his usual investigations, Mike decided to surf at a beach. Watching people ride the powerful waves, he grabbed his surfboard and paddled out into the water. As he was enjoying the waves, his eyes caught sight of an airplane flying overhead, towing an advertisement banner for an insurance company. Distracted, Mike stopped and began reading the banner, but just then, a large wave hit. The force threw him off his board, and it slammed into his head, knocking him unconscious. Drowning, Mike was pulled under, but before long, the ocean spit him out onto the shore, lifeless. A man rushed over to assist, and Mike, coughing and gasping for air, woke up completely fine. The next day, Mike resumed his usual routine. He picked up some letters at the post office and headed to his favorite cafe to read through them. Most of the letters were advertisements for haunted hotels, but one postcard stood out. It was from a hotel called the Dolphin in New York, with a photograph of the building. On the back, it read, "Do not go to room number 1408. Intrigued, Mike immediately decided he would visit the Dolphin Hotel and stay in that very room. He called the hotel to reserve room 1408, but the receptionist immediately refused. She offered him any other room but insisted that room 1408 was off limits. Mike found this strange and decided to investigate further. Searching through old newspaper archives, Mike learned that in 1938, a factory owner had committed suicide by jumping out of the window of room 1408. Since then, more than a dozen people had died in the same room, often in bizarre circumstances. The mysterious deaths only fueled Mike's curiosity. Determined to uncover the truth, Mike called his publisher Sam, who was in New York, and asked for his help in securing a reservation. Sam spoke to his lawyer, who informed Mike that legally, if a hotel refused to rent a room, the guest could take legal action. Sam assured Mike that his lawyer would book the room for him. He also asked if Mike truly wanted to return to New York, since Mike had been living in Los Angeles after leaving his wife, Lily, a few years ago. Although Mike's father had advised him to reconcile with Lily, Mike had distanced himself from both his wife and father. The next night, Mike arrived at the Dolphin Hotel. At the front desk, he informed the receptionist that he had booked room 1408. She seemed hesitant and quickly called the manager, Gerald Olin. Olin greeted Mike and invited him to his office.
Could you please humor me by coming to my office for a more private conversation?
Sure.
Where he offered Mike an expensive $800 bottle of wine as a gift, urging him to choose another room instead of 1408. Mike smiled and refused, saying, "Your gift is appreciated, Mr. Olin, but it won't stop me from staying in room 1408. Olin sighed and said, "You do know how many people have died in that room, right? No one has stayed there longer than an hour. I can't risk another death in this hotel." Mike chuckled and replied, I've stayed in many haunted rooms, and nothing has ever scared me. Olin opened a file and showed Mike photos and details of the people who had died in room 1408. There were 56 deaths, all occurring in very strange ways. The first victim, Kevin O'Malley, a sewing machine salesman in 1912, had slit his throat and tied the wound with thread. A woman had drowned in a bowl of chicken soup, and the deaths went on in increasingly bizarre and gruesome ways. Mike was both horrified and fascinated. "You're telling me there's a ghost in that room?" he asked, to which Olin replied, "No, it's not a ghost or a devil. It's the room itself. It's cursed." Olin handed Mike the key to room 1408 and said, "You can go, but remember no one survives that room for long." Mike walked to the 14th floor, still skeptical, but intrigued by Olin's warnings. As they arrived at the door of room 1408, Mike said, "If the room is as dangerous as you claim, why is it still open? Surely it should be locked forever." Olin replied, "We clean the room once a month, but no one stays more than 10 minutes. We've had strange occurrences, like a maid who got locked in the bathroom and later tore out her own eyes with scissors." She was laughing like a maniac. Mike wasn't scared though. He took the key from Olin and opened the door. Inside was an immaculate room, bright, spacious, and luxurious. Nothing like the haunted, dark room he had expected. Mike switched on the light, lay on the bed, and began recording his thoughts on his tape recorder. This is just a normal hotel room. He examined the room, then turned his attention to the bathroom, noticing a few stains on the carpet, but nothing unusual. But then, something strange happened. A song started playing on the radio by the bed.
Traffic below, the view of a motel.
Surprised, turned around to find the radio on, even though he hadn't touched it. He approached it and noticed 2 chocolate bars on the pillow. He was confused. He had woken up just a moment ago, and there were no chocolates there. Then Mike realized it was a prank. Maybe Olin or one of his staff members had hidden somewhere in the room to try and scare him.
Hello? You're gonna have to try harder, asshole!
Mike checked every corner but found no one. However, when he returned to the bathroom, he saw that the toilet paper he had torn earlier was now neatly arranged. This unnerved Mike. How could anyone have moved so quickly to fix it while he was distracted by the radio? The room grew increasingly hot.
Nice and warm for you up there? It's hot down here, Bubba.
Mike picked up the phone to complain, but before he could speak, the receptionist asked, "Mr. Enslin, are you checking out now?" Confused, Mike said, "No, I need someone to fix the thermostat. It's unbearably hot in here." The receptionist promised to send someone immediately. Mike felt a sense of relief, but as the minutes passed, the temperature in the room continued to rise. Mike switched off the lights and used his ultraviolet light to inspect the room. To his horror, he saw bloodstains on the walls and bed. He froze, imagining the horrific deaths that had occurred in this very room. Just then, there was a knock at the door. Mike jumped up, heart racing. But when he opened the door, an engineer arrived to fix the thermostat but refused to step inside the room. "I'll show you what to do from here," he said, standing firmly at the threshold. Mike found his behavior unnerving but followed his instructions. After repairing the thermostat, Mike tried to relax with a glass of wine. The radio began playing again. This time, a timer appeared on the clock counting down an hour. Mike was starting to feel something was terribly wrong. Mike found himself enveloped in an unsettling silence. No matter how hard he tried, he couldn't hear a single sound. Confused and disoriented, he moved closer to the window, hoping the bustling traffic outside might provide some reassurance. But even as he strained to listen, the familiar hum of the city was absent. Frustration grew within him, now eerily silent, and began to step away from the window. Suddenly, with a sharp crash, the glass fell down without warning on his hand, leaving him startled and in pain. Clutching his hand, blood trickling down his fingers, Mike stood frozen, his mind racing with questions. What just happened? And why was the world so quiet? As he tried to clean the wound, the tap water turned scalding hot, burning him. The radio played on, and Mike realized he was trapped. He called for help, but the receptionist ignored his pleas, continuing to offer him menus from the kitchen. Mike was desperate. He couldn't escape the room, and the terror was becoming overwhelming. He tried to break the door down but was unable to. The key broke, and the doorknob came off in his hand. Mike was losing his mind. When he looked through the peephole, he was shocked to see his own eyes staring back at him. Mike felt a jolt of fear and instinctively backed away from the door. Panicked, he ran to the window, shouting for help as loudly as he could. Unfortunately, the noise of traffic below swallowed his cries. Just then, Mike noticed a man seated by a window in the building opposite. Desperate, Mike screamed and waved his arms to get the man's attention. Luckily, the man noticed him and rose from his seat, approaching the window. Mike signaled frantically, urging the man to call the police. But instead of helping, the man began mimicking Mike's every movement. Confused, it felt to Mike like he was staring into a mirror. Due to the dim light, Mike couldn't see the man's face clearly. Determined to uncover the truth, Mike grabbed a lamp and shone its light toward the figure. At the same time, the man did the exact same thing, illuminating his face. What Mike saw left him stunned. The man was his exact duplicate. Before he could process this shocking discovery, another figure appeared behind the man and struck him with a hammer. Terrified, Mike turned away from the window, only to find the same hammer-wielding man standing directly behind him. The attacker lunged at Mike, swinging wildly, but Mike managed to dodge and scramble into a corner. He shut his eyes tightly, bracing for another attack. When he opened them, the man had vanished. Shaken but alive, Mike stumbled back to the window. In a desperate bid to get someone's attention, he threw the lamp out the window. To his disbelief, the lamp disappeared mid-fall, vanishing into thin air. Mike was bewildered. He tried to make sense of it all, remembering that before he arrived here, Olin had given him some alcohol. Mike grew suspicious that it might have been laced with a drug, causing him to hallucinate.
Booze more than chocolate. Never take candy from strangers. All right. I'm just hallucinating.
He fought to regain control over his thoughts, trying to steady himself. Suddenly, a voice echoed from the living room. Mike froze. It was the voice of his daughter Katie, who had died years ago. Heart pounding, he ran to the living room, only to find it empty. Then, Katie's voice began echoing from every corner of the room. Overwhelmed, Mike dropped to his knees in fear. A sudden movement caught his eye. Looking back at the window, he saw a man staring at him. Just as he tried to make sense of their appearance, a snapping sound came from the living room. Rushing back, he found a crack forming in the wall, oozing blood. Horrified, Mike felt trapped in a nightmare, a web of truth and illusion that blurred the lines of reality. Desperate to escape, he convinced himself it was all a dream, reasoning that if he was dreaming, nothing could harm him. Determined, he decided to leave the room by climbing out the window to reach the next room. Consulting the map near the door, he calculated that the other room's window was just 18 feet away. Steeling himself, climbed out and cautiously maneuvered along the narrow ledge. Step by step, he edged toward the neighboring window, counting 9 paces as he went. When he reached what should have been the other window, his stomach dropped. The window didn't exist. None of the neighboring rooms had windows, except for room 1408. Panic surged as he lost his balance, nearly plummeting. Clinging to the ledge, he managed to steady himself and return to his window. Just as Mike was about to climb back inside, an unknown woman appeared and launched a sudden attack. Mike climbed back into the room with every ounce of strength he had left. As he caught his breath, reality hit him. This wasn't a dream. If it were, he'd have woken up by now, especially from a nightmare this vivid. He noticed something unusual on the map by the door. The rest of the hotel's rooms had vanished from the map, leaving only room 1408. Gripped by unease, Mike searched his bag and pulled out his phone, but there was no signal. He quickly opened his laptop. relieved to find that the internet was working. He immediately video called his wife, Lily. To his luck, Lily picked up, but her expression was far from welcoming. She was still furious with Mike for leaving her. Mike apologized profusely, pleading for her help. Lily, please call the police and tell them I'm trapped in room 1408 of the Dolphin Hotel. Lily's anger deepened. You're in New York? You didn't even bother to meet me? Mike begged for her understanding, but she continued airing her grievances. Suddenly, the room's fire sensor activated and water gushed from the ceiling sprinkler system. The spray drenched his laptop, shorting it out. Frustrated, Mike grabbed a wooden chair and hurled it at the sprinkler, breaking it and halting the water flow. His eyes then fell on the ventilation grate near the ceiling. Desperate, he pried it open with a knife and crawled inside.
I got a knife!
The narrow ducts led him to the ventilation grill of another room. Peering through, he saw a woman sitting with a child on her lap. Mike called out, "Help me!" but his voice echoed back strangely. The woman turned toward him. It was Lily, holding their daughter, Katie. Mike froze. This was a scene from his past. Overcome with shock, he moved further down the vent, only to stumble upon another memory, an argument with his father. Now, in the vent, Mike was face to face with these painful memories. Shaken, he pressed on until he encountered something horrific, a long dead body wrapped in cobwebs. A needle and thread dangled from its hand. Mike realized this was a former guest of room 1408 who had tried to sew their wounds shut before succumbing to madness. Suddenly, the corpse sprang to life. Mike scrambled away, kicking at the undead figure until it collapsed, then fled back to the cursed room. Panting and terrified, Mike tried to steady himself. He opened the minibar, hoping for alcohol to calm his nerves, but instead found the hotel manager, Olin, inside. "Mr. Enslin," Olin sneered, "do you believe in ghosts now?" Enraged, Mike shouted, "Olin, this is all you're doing. What do you want from me?" Olin's expression darkened. "You mock ghosts and God, yet people believe in them for a reason, hope. Hope that death isn't the end. You destroy that hope." Before Mike could retort, Olin vanished, leaving him screaming at an empty fridge.
What do you want from me? You...
In desperation, Mike turned to the Bible left in the room, but its pages were blank. The room taunted him with another haunting vision of Katie's final days. As he watched, he realized how wrong he had been to blame Lily. Katie's death was no one's fault. The room grew colder. Shivering uncontrollably, Mike lit a fire with scraps from the room to stay warm. Just as he started to feel some relief, his laptop flickered to life. Lily appeared on the screen. "Mike, I called the police. They checked room 1408, but they said no one was there." "What?" Mike stammered. Lily said, "I'm coming to get you myself. Don't worry, I'll be there to pick you up in 15 minutes, Lily assured Mike over the phone. But when Mike glanced at his watch, panic crept and only 14 minutes remained. His heart raced as he quickly told Lily not to come. However, before he could say more, the screen in front of him flickered, and to his horror, his own image appeared, speaking directly to Lily. "Lily, you have to come quickly, or I won't make it." The image of Mike pleaded, urgency in its voice chilling. "Come to this room right away." Mike's blood ran cold as he realized the horrifying truth. The room wasn't just after him, it was trying to lure Lily in too. Desperately, Mike tried to warn her again, shouting, "No, Lily, don't come. Stay away from this place." But just as he began to explain, the call abruptly cut off, leaving him in helpless silence. As the call ended, the room began to collapse. Walls crumbled, and a storm of rain and seawater erupted, flooding the room. Mike tried to stay afloat, but darkness enveloped him. When he awoke, Mike was lying on a beach, dressed in surfing gear. He recognized the scene. It was the day he nearly drowned while surfing. Had this all been a hallucination? A nightmare? Lily arrived at the hospital where Mike was recovering. She explained, You were unconscious for hours after hitting your head. Mike tried to tell her about room 1408, but Lily dismissed it as a vivid dream. Still, the experience haunted Mike. He returned to writing, turning the events of room 1408 into a book. Days later, while sending the manuscript to his publisher, Mike noticed something strange. The post office employees were the same staff from the Dolphin Hotel. As walls crumbled around him, he found himself back in room 1408. The truth hit him like a wave. He had never left. This time, the room offered him an escape. A noose hanging in the corner. Express checkout, a voice whispered. Mike refused. Instead, he crafted a Molotov cocktail using a liquor bottle. If I die, he vowed, this room goes with me. The fire consumed room 1408, and with it, Mike. Days later, Lily buried Mike beside Katie. Olin, the hotel manager, handed her a box of Mike's belongings, including his tape recorder. Lily refused to take it. Olin go back to his car and listened to the recording. As he listened to it in his car, he heard Katie's voice calling for her father. Olin froze, glancing in the rearview mirror. But the back seat was empty, or was it? Meanwhile, back in room 1408, the ghostly Mike stood by the window, smoking a cigarette. Though the room was charred and destroyed, its sinister presence remained. Thanks for watching, and until next time, stay curious, but maybe steer clear of the haunted rooms.